Welcome everyone to the 10th annual Keter Torah Awards. We would love for the honorees to see how many people are here this evening, so please consider turning on your video. As everyone knows, this award was conceptualized as a means by which to recognize and publicize the invaluable contribution of women in our community. I want to pause for a moment to acknowledge Virginia and Adina, the co-chairs of this event, two women who have contributed so much to our community and who have in particular helped shine a spotlight on women leadership. As our Parsha opens this week with the story of the spies, it takes the time to name each of the spies. What's surprising is that both before and after the spies are identified in the psukim, the Torah goes out of its way to tell us these are their names. We haven't quite gotten there in Daf Yomi yet, but the Gemara in Sota tells us that the reason it says these are their names 2 times is because the Torah wants us to notice that each name carries a deeper meaning. The name Satur ben Michael, for instance, tells us that there was a person, that he was a person, shesatar ma'asav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who contravened the plans of Hashem. And so we've chosen as our theme for this year's Keter Torah Award, the 2 words behind the names of tonight's honorees. Shira means song, and Ora means light. Thinking about these past 15 months, coronavirus has deprived us of many aspects of our sensory experience. For some, that's been literal. They lost their sense of smell and taste. And for all of us, by virtue of being masked and made to be apart from one another, we lost the opportunities to smell and to taste, to touch and be touched, that in the course of our normal lives, we so often experience together with our families, our friends, and our community. In relation to the world outside our homes, our pandemic lives left us almost exclusively reliant on our senses of sight and sound. We're now starting to emerge from this time of isolation and return to a world with touch, with the sharing of foods and tastes and smells, a world which we take in with all of our senses. And as we do, it's fitting that we pause and take just a few moments to reflect on the 2 senses that have had an outsized impact during the pandemic, sight and sound. Ora, or represents the best and most crucial element of sight. And Shira, or Shir, represents a powerful and transformative experience of sound. Light and song, of course, offer us comfort and hope from darkness, from silence. They allow us to look forward and they lift our hearts. But just as importantly, light and song help us capture complexity. Light is the instrument that allows us to look deeply and closely at something, to peer beneath the surface and into the crevices. And song evokes the fullest range of human experience and human emotion. These 15 months have been incredibly complex. It seems as if virtually every aspect of our lives has been touched by very real and complex challenges. Health, science, politics, race, religion, community, Israel. Nothing about this time has been simple. And yet, the beauty of a community like ours is that with both light and song, with nuance and complexity, we've cast ourselves into difficult conversations. We've made ourselves vulnerable. We've opened ourselves up to listen. we've created opportunities to be inwardly reflective, even as we volunteered to act in real ways outwardly. And we've done this all while simultaneously using light and song to be uplifted and to do the work of uplifting others. What a special community it is that can take these gifts of light and song and use them as the treasures they are and with the responsibilities they carry. And of course, our honorees tonight, Shira and Ora, so perfectly exemplify all that their names imply. It is my greatest pleasure to wish them Mazel Tov on this well-deserved honor. And now, for more on the stars of this evening, I want to turn the program over to Yossi.
Thank you so much. I feel a little like one of those people you see in a restaurant. Two people are having lunch together and they're both staring down at their phones. Rachel and I are sitting here across the table from each other on separate Zoom accounts. Could you pass the water? No, I'm just joking. We actually flipped a coin to see who was to go first. I let Ray win. And once again, I'm just joking. Not left to chance. Everything was very neatly scripted by Adina and Virginia. Is one of the great themes of Sefer Bamidbar. Like the story of our Parsha, we have moments when things could have gone off the rails, but someone intervenes to help keep things on track. And of course, this is all true, but even more specifically, Bamidbar is about individuals who lead and lift up others in the process of their leading. Now, crowds are very influential. In case it was lost on us, the Torah records a census at both the beginning and end of the book of Bamidbar to remind us just how much of a crowd the Jewish people had become. As Moshe discovered time and again, they could be unruly and sometimes downright unleadable. And yet, against this backdrop, individuals step up and lift up the entire community through their leadership. Think of Kalev and Yehoshua and Pinchas and the leaders of the Sanhedrin. Each of them had someone else they could have pointed to. Kalev or Yehoshua could have put the responsibility on the other. Pinchas was standing right next to Moshe. They were more than enough qualified members of the Sanhedrin. No one was compelled to serve. For each of them, there was a case to be made that someone else could have led. It would have been so easy to say, Shlach na b'yad tishlach, just let someone else take this lead. Instead, they chose to accept the mantle of leadership. In her 35 years at the Jewish Center, Shira has personified this ethic, and she's lifted our entire community in the process. Of course, she's always willing to volunteer on a committee or serve as an usher. She's served in so many leadership roles, including vice president and trustee. There's almost no aspect of the shul in which she's not been involved. She was deeply invested in our centennial committees and most recently, our Yoval initiative this year. She's one of the founders of our Women's Talmud and is a regular at our weekly classes. On so many occasions, it would have been so easy to say, Shlach na b'yad tishlach, maybe someone else could do it. Shira always says yes. Shira and Danny have raised a beautiful family. And I want to acknowledge 4 generations that are with us tonight. Margie, Aliza, Yael and Tony, Razi, and Jake, of course, joining Danny and Shira for this special moment. Shira, thank you for modeling leadership for our community. And thank you for always bringing to that leadership your characteristic thoughtfulness and generosity of spirit. To accept our 2021 Keter Torah Award, it's my pleasure to introduce Shira Orenstein-Kine.
Thank you, Rachel and Rabbi, for your inspiring and lovely words and that really nice introduction. Rabbis Rachel, Ora, fellow members, family, and friends, we recently celebrated the holiday of Shavuot, which for me was greatly enhanced by our annual women's reading of Megillat Ruth, this year in person on the roof of the Jewish Center, a pandemic milestone. Pulling this off was a testament to our commitment to both community and continuity of Jewish tradition, a tradition that I have personally participated in for as long as the women's reading has been around at the Jewish Center. In the spirit of Shavuot, I'd like to share a couple of brief thoughts about the book of Ruth. It's not a coincidence that the Keter Torah is celebrated as we recount the story of female strength and empowerment in biblical times. In fact, this book is the only one in the Torah which passes the Bechtel test. The Bechtel test is used to measure the representation of women in a story with the criteria of 1, at least 2 women are featured, 2, they speak to each other, and 3, they discuss something other than a man. Some would add that the criterion that they must be named as well should be part of this. And here both women are indeed named, which makes them significant characters from a biblical perspective. It was both surprising and yet not entirely unexpected to learn that this book uniquely passes the Bechtel test. When looking back, women are frequently game changers in our historical narrative. Think Tamar, Hannah, Yael, Esther, or even Eve. But what I find resonant in this particular story is the power of what can be created when women work together in harmony with care, consideration, and respect for one another. Ruth could have left Naomi to return to Judah on her own and live off the charity of others, and she herself could have returned to her previous life as a Moabite. But the bond of wise women seeking out friendship, mentorship, and sisterhood transported them to build a future for the Jewish people that still holds significance today. As described by the scholar Yael Ziegler, Ruth's type of selflessness is not something Judaism demands of its constituents, yet it is an absolute necessity for our leaders. So why is the story of Ruth even part of Tanakh, aside from its female-centric narrative? It is to tell the story of King David's lineage, and more importantly, the origin of his leadership qualities. These women defined leadership with their chesed and devotion to exceed what was asked of them, and perhaps unknowingly imprinted these expectations on the generations of Jewish leaders to come. And I've seen leaders rise to these expectations, not only on the world stage, but some much closer to home. My mother, Rosalind Orenstein, Zichrona Livracha, and my mother-in-law, Margie Kahn, have perpetuated this path forged by Naomi's unwavering commitment to family and tradition, and Ruth's exemplary generosity and kindness. I'm lucky to have had many strong female role models throughout my life, including those you are hearing from today, and I hope in a small way to be part of the chain of women leaders to come. While I came from a strong Jewish background with 11 years of yeshiva and an observant nuclear family, we had no 12th grade, we had to graduate early. With my dad as a rabbi in a traditional synagogue, I learned a lot about synagogue life and living by the Torah, but I did not have the same spiritual home I subsequently found on the West Side and at the Jewish Center. Here I found the modern Orthodox Center for Jewish Life and Learning, and a spectrum of people in a neighborhood I was seeking for raising my family. More immediately, when I married Danny, I was welcomed across the street and took on the Kahn family as my own. Having never been to the JC, I went with "Whither thou goest, I will go," and followed my mother-in-law right to my row in shul. In fact, after all these years, I find my seat by looking for Margie and Gilda rather than knowing the actual letter of the row. Even during the pandemic, when we couldn't be in the shul building, we started our own tradition of getting the whole family together in the courtyard of Margie's building every Shabbat morning, with frequent JC guest appearances, most often the Skydells. In all our adjusting, we've created beautiful customs that will last far beyond the pandemic. And I also have to credit the shul with navigating these unprecedented times with grace and keeping our safety at the forefront. We are a resilient congregation charged with nurturing our tradition and our fellow members of the Kehillah. I have been honored to be a part of this endeavor. We have really found a home here with friends as well as family. We are part of a community that cares deeply about Israel, social justice, helping people in need, and living a life of mitzvot integrated into an ever-changing modern world. One of the things I have enjoyed most myself at the JC has been the opportunity to learn from our very own outstanding rabbis and resident scholars, as well as a host of visiting scholars, all with interesting points of view. I especially enjoy Rabbi Levine's class on the commentators and learning Gemara with Ora. It has been very special to organize a class for women who have had limited exposure to Gemara in our formal educations and are excited to grapple with the arguments of the sages alongside our daughters. I was surprised to learn that Ora, with her exceptionally thoughtful and patient teaching style, also took on the project of becoming skilled in oral law on her own after her yeshiva education. Ora, I am in awe of you and honored to receive this Keter Torah award alongside you. Finally, I'm so appreciative of my sweet and patient Danny, who is truly my other half. If it were not for him, any of the time and help I have attempted to give to the causes we believe in, as well as working full-time, running healthcare programs and foundations while raising our daughters, would not have been possible. We are particularly proud of our dear children, Aliza and Yael and Tony, who are truly exceptional people and make us look good as parents and in-laws. Really, we are the lucky ones, having them and Razi and Jake in our lives. Thank you to the rabbi, president, and officers for this lovely honor. My special thanks to the chairs of Keter Torah, Virginia Bear-Hurt and Adina Wagman, and to the entire committee and shul office for organizing this wonderful evening, and to all of you for celebrating the remarkable women of the JC with me. Thank you.
Mazel Tov, Shira, and please can we all join together for some song now to celebrate Shira's accomplishment, her award. Please join me for Siman Tov Mazel Tov. Siman Tov Mazel Tov Mazel Tov Siman Tov Siman Tov Mazel Tov Mazel Tov Siman Tov Siman Tov Mazel Tov Mazel Tov Siman Tov Yehelanu Siman Tov Mazel Tov Mazel Tov Siman Tov Siman Tov Mazel Tov Mazel Tov Siman Tov Siman Tov Mazel Tov Mazel Tov Siman Tov Yehelanu 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 Kol Echol Yisrael Yehelanu Yehelanu Kol Echol Yisrael Yehelanu Yehelanu Kol Echol Yisrael Yehelanu Yehelanu Kol Echol Yisrael. Mazel Tov.
Thank you, Shira. Thank you, Chazan. Now, Reb Shlomo Ephraim Lunchitz was the Rav of Prague at the beginning of the 17th century. We know him as the author of the Kli Yakar. His commentary was wildly popular both in his own generation and after his lifetime. Today, it appears in every standard edition of the Mikraos Gedolos. Among the many explanations we know for why the mission of the spies was such a failure, the Kli Yakar is perhaps the most appropriate to this moment. To understand what happened here, he writes, one really need look no further than the first three words, Shlach Lecha Anashim. When it came to the Meraglim, the mistake was sending men. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu lefi da'ati shani roeh ba'asid haya yoser tov lishloach nashim hamechavavos es aretz ki lo yispru b'gnusa. Hashem said, my opinion, inasmuch as I can divine the future, would have been better to dispatch women, lovers of the land, so that they would not speak disparagingly about it. Had Moshe sent women, the Kli Yakar writes, the story of the spies would have gone in a very different direction. Look what happens when the voice of women is absent. It has been and continues to be a priority for our community to ensure that the voices of women are represented and heard, particularly when it comes to the voice of Talmud Torah. For the past 4 years, Ora Weinbach has been not only an outstanding teacher, but a role model for so many in our community. Her commitment to tefillah and to Talmud Torah are palpable. With her huge smile and unbounded positivity, she engaged with every demographic in our shul, from the kids and the teens to our advanced leadership and everyone in between. She was even able to build connections over Zoom. I got an email after one of our events this year, the subject line of which was interest in learning more about the Jewish Center. Here's the salient part. My husband and I have never settled on a shul on the west side, and I'm wondering if the Jewish Center might be a good fit for us. We just participated in an online program, and Ora Weinbach is so impressive. With warmth, grace, and humor, she invited us to engage with the texts of our past, all the while inspiring us to be better Jews and better people today. It goes without saying that she's excelled in her role as educator, but she's also excelled in roles that were voluntary. She was the first one to volunteer to be involved in Yoval, and we've all seen her talents shine. What she helped shape at the Jewish Center is quickly becoming a template for shuls across and beyond the New York area. As much as we're sad to bid her farewell, we're so excited for Ora and Aaron as they embark on this new stage of their lives, and as Ora Weinbach.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Levine, for that introduction, and even more importantly, for the guidance and mentorship that you've given me over the last 4 years. This evening, I'm honored to be honored with Shira Orenstein. Warm, generous, and sharp-minded, Shira has been a regular attendee and active participant in my weekly women's Talmud class, always sharing ideas and asking questions, both from our time together in class and from the words shared about and by her this evening. Shira has taught me so much. Being co-honorees with her is, in itself, a privilege. Thank you to Adina Wagman and Virginia Bayerhurt for chairing this year's Keter Torah Awards. Their participation is particularly meaningful for me, as these two remarkable women have been central to my Jewish Center experience. Adina was the first person who told me about the community educator position and encouraged me to apply. Since then, I have seen how dedicated she is to the Jewish Center. From youth programming and hosting meals to the Yoval Planning Committee and Chesed projects, Adina and her organization, tenacity and brilliance are a pillar of this community. I do not think that I'm exaggerating when I say that over this past year, Virginia is the most contacted person in my phone, third only to my then fiance, now husband, Aaron, and my mother. She is an all-around, awe-inspiring role model, dignified leader, and dear friend. Virginia has been an invaluable partner in co-chairing Yoval, our community's year of very active listening, educational initiative on issues of race and racism, was one of the largest professional undertakings of my career to date. Its remarkable success is due to her wisdom, empathy, and partnership. Before I share some words of Torah, I want to take a brief moment to acknowledge just a few people of the many people who have made my 4 years at the Jewish Center so vibrant, fulfilling, and fun. First and foremost, thank you to my colleagues on the clergy and staff team with whom I have worked and learned so much from over the past 4 years. Thank you to Rabbi Yossi Levine and Rachel and Rabbi Eli Buchler and Tamar. Gone but not forgotten, Rabbi David Zirkind and Rabbi Noach Goldstein, and also the rabbinic interns, Rabbi Avi Fetter, Rabbi Shua Brick, and Yoni Rabinovich. The amazing youth director, Sarah Goldstein, the wizards in the office, Batsheva, Saba, and Paulina, our tireless executive director, Aaron Strum, along with our maintenance and staff. I also want to acknowledge 2 women who held this position before me, who are my mentors and role models, Dr. Erica Brown and Dr. Alana Stein-Hain. And I want to thank in advance the many brave and talented women who will, please God, hold this position after me. Thank you, President Andrew Bordak and former President Avi Schwartz, along with the officers and board who generously give of their time to make this shul what it is. In particular, thank you for your commitment to this award and my position, ensuring that women's leadership is a proud priority of our shul. There are so many of you here who I have grown close with over my time. You are more than my congregants and even more than my friends. You really do feel like my family. But I also want to thank my literal family. 1 month ago, I got to join the Troys, and even in that short time, Dan, Cheryl, Leora, and Ariel have shown themselves to be the most loving and supportive in-laws a girl could dream of. Thank you to my brothers, Ellie, Shimmy, and Yehuda for making me tough, loud, and caring. I am also eternally grateful to my parents whose unwavering love and confidence in me have carried me through every challenge and triumph I have faced. Tonight, I'm also thinking about my grandparents. Grandma Ruth Blonde, Aleha HaShalom, and Grandpa Nat Blonde made sure that their children, my mom, aunts, and uncle, received an excellent Jewish education despite extreme financial hardship. I hope this accomplishment can be considered a small repayment in honor of their immense sacrifice. Grandma Lee and Grandpa Rabbi David Weinbach, Aleha Shalom, were beloved leaders in the New York Jewish community. My grandfather was a renowned Jewish educator as principal of MTA and Central. My grandmother was a driving force as president of the Shari Tzedek Women's Division, and together they ran Jewish summer camps, Raleigh and Lavi, for many years. In following their legacy of Jewish communal leadership, I aspire to honor their memory and hope that they are proud. Acharon Chaviv, our Aaron Troy, my newly minted husband. Thank you for always believing in me. Although I'm sad we need to leave the Upper West Side, I'm also so excited for all the new adventures that we are about to embark on together. I am humbled and grateful to be receiving this award. Keter Torah, not the award, but the concept, is what motivated me to become the Jewish Center community educator in the first place. The phrase Keter Torah comes from a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shlosha Ketarim Heim, Keter Torah, V'Keter Kehuna, V'Keter Malchut. Rabbi Shimon says there are 3 crowns, the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of kingship. In the Laws of Torah study, Rambam discusses this Mishnah, attempting to determine which of the 3 crowns is best. He explains that the crown of priesthood was merited by Aaron and given to his descendants, and the crown of kingship was merited by David and given to his descendants. But the crown of Torah is different. Keter Torah harei munach ve'omed umuchan l'kol Yisrael. The crown of Torah is here, presented and ready for all of Israel. Shene'emar, Torah tziva lanu Moshe, morasha kihilat Yaakov. The Torah was given to all of us by Moshe, and it is the rightful inheritance of the whole congregation. Rambam then comments, Kol mi sheyirtzeh yavo v'yitol. Anyone who wants it may come and take it. Halamadata sheketer Torah gadol mishnehem. And that is what teaches us that the crown of Torah is greater than the other 2. The other 2 crowns were merited by specific people and can only be acquired by specific people due to their lineage, an accident of their birth. By contrast, the Torah was given to all of Israel. Any person who wants it can go and learn and acquire the crown. It is there, ready and waiting. And yet, for a long time, that has not really been the case. Fully half of our community has been, and in some ways continues to be, precluded from reaching the crown of Torah. There are limits to how high women can aspire in their Jewish education and Torah leadership. These limits have been maintained and sometimes reinforced, not by halacha, but by cultural norms, communal priorities, and societal expectations. When we deny Torah study to particular people or groups, we ourselves undermine the very thing which makes it so special. This is an issue not just for women, but for every single Jew. The very thing which makes the crown of Torah the most distinguished of all crowns is that it is supposed to be available to everyone. Our community is strongest when our smartest, most passionate, dedicated, and God-loving individuals become Torah scholars, teachers, and leaders. Our community flourishes when any and everyone actively participates. Torah is at its most glorious, honorable, and beautiful for all of us when it is accessible to each of us. This belief has been the driving force of my Torah learning and teaching. I have spent an inappropriate amount of time formatting my source sheets and carefully translating the original text so that any person, regardless of their Hebrew background, can engage in text-based discussions. Audience participation and group discussions is the center of my pedagogy because I always strive to empower each individual to engage personally and directly with the Torah. This was also the driving motivation behind one of the highlights of my time here, teaching the women's Talmud class. Our community is brimming with smart, capable women, many with extensive Jewish education, who simply have never been given access to Gemara. This class was designed to provide these women with the skills and confidence to learn Talmud. And we did it. Every woman, from teenagers to older adults, participated at her own level, reading, translating, analyzing, asking questions, and offering interpretations. After 3 years, our class proudly concluded with the siyum on the 3rd chapter of Masechet Tani. I believe that the Torah is for each and every one of us, no matter your gender, educational background, age, whatever. The crown of Torah is here for you. Kol mi sheyirtzeh yavo v'yitol. Anybody who wants it can come and take it. In the past decade, there has been significant progress in women's Torah study and leadership in the modern Orthodox community. The Jewish Center stands proudly in support of this change. True to its long, rich history, our shul sets an example, which is a major reason why I was excited to take this position. If the Jewish Center has a community educator, any and every modern Orthodox shul in the country can and should. I am so grateful that I get to be alive right now and participate in these changes in expanding the glory of Torah. I will never take these opportunities to learn and teach for granted because growing up, I literally never could have imagined a woman giving a sermon from the pulpit. I could not because I had never seen it done by anyone who looked or sounded like me. That is why I never really mind when children make noise or even run up and down the aisle during my drashot, because those kids won't ever doubt. Sorry, I knew I would cry. Hold on, I got a tissue. Okay. Because those kids won't ever doubt that it is possible for a woman to wear the Keter Torah. They will have seen it, and please God, they will take it for granted. It is with this hope and a tender heart that I close this chapter in my life at the Jewish Center. I only hope that the Torah that I have shared over my 4 years has sufficiently repaid and honored the Jewish Center community for all that it has taught and given me over these past 4 wonderful years. Thank you.
And now, to celebrate Ora, let's gather and sing together one more time. Siman Tov Mazel Tov. Siman Tov Mazel Tov, Siman Tov Mazel Tov, Siman Tov Mazel Tov, Yehi Lanu. Siman Tov Mazel Tov, Siman Tov Mazel Tov, Siman Tov Mazel Tov, Yehi Lanu, Yehi Lanu. Ayoy Lechol Yisrael. and the Torah. Torah Hashem Temimah, Torah Hashem Temimah, Torah Hashem Temimah, Meshivot Nafesh, Torah Hashem Temimah, Torah Hashem Temimah, Torah Hashem Temimah, Meshivot Nafesh, Dos Hashem. Thank you for joining me in song. I'd like to share the spotlight now with co-chair Adina Wagman, who will conclude the night with some thank yous and then bid you all farewell. Thank you.
We are so happy that you were all able to join us here in this special, special evening. We have some quick but very heartfelt thank yous to Rabbi Levine, Rabbi Buchler, Rachel Levine, Aaron Strum, Chazan Green, Angela Himsel, and Virginia Bayer Hurt. You all worked so hard to make this such a beautiful and meaningful evening. To our sponsors, we are truly grateful for your generosity and support. We really, really appreciate it. And if you have not yet had a chance to donate, feel free to go to jewishcenter.org. To Shira and Ora, on behalf of the entire congregation, we wish you a huge mazal tov on this very well-deserved honor. You inspire us. And now let's all unmute ourselves and wish our very own personal mazel tovs to these wonderful honorees.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Mazel
Tov.
All wonderful.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Ora.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov to both of you.
Mazel tov, mazel tov.
Beautiful.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Yeah, there's the Morrows.
You both spoke beautifully. Thank you.
Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Just beautiful.
Wonderful, inspiring, etc.
Very inspiring.